In this video, we're going to be taking a look at a handful of tactical flashlights and comparing their unique features, their outputs, throw distances, beam patterns, and other specs. And they're all powered by 18650 batteries, so if you're in the market for a tactical flashlight, this video will show you a few different options and help you decide which one is best for you. We're going to start off with the ACEBEAM P15, and I've reviewed a handful of ACEBEAM lights, and their build quality is definitely top caliber. The P15 has an aluminum alloy body with an HA3 anti-abrasive finish, and there's some smooth wide linear knurling on the tube. It has a robust pocket clip that's also removable, and it can be mounted to a pick mount or an M-lock as well. It has a really interesting proprietary charging setup with a mechanical lock, which secures the connection to the light, and it can fully charge the included custom 3100 mAh battery in about 2.5 hours. The P15 can tail stand, and there's a recessed metal switch on the tail, and there's 6 different output modes. It has a crenulated bezel with small teeth, a hardened dual AR-coated glass lens, and a luminous SFT40W emitter. The P15 has a max output of 1700 lumens, an intensity of 27,225 candela, and a max beam throw distance of 330 meters. The P15 has a really tight hotspot and one of the longest throw distances of the lights here, but also has a really wide flood angle, so it's well suited for relatively long distance use, while still good for walking around and illuminating objects at shorter distances. This is the Olight Warrior Mini 2, and this is one of the most compact lights in the lineup, and it has a really long-lasting moonlight mode as well. It has a very grippy rectangular style knurling on the majority of the tube, and a removable two-way pocket clip. There's also a rubber side switch, and there's 6 different output modes, including a strobe. On the tail, there's a flat switch, which does allow the Mini 2 to tail stand, and gives the user direct access to turbo and strobe. The tail also doubles as a hookup for Olight's proprietary magnetic charging system, and it comes with a customized 3500 mAh battery. It has a crenulated bezel with short teeth, a glass lens with TIR optics, and a luminous SST40 CW LED, and it also has a proximity sensor which dims the output modes when blocked by a nearby object. The Warrior Mini 2 has a max output of 1750 lumens, a peak intensity of 12,300 candela, and a max throw distance of 220 meters. It has an incredibly wide beam angle, and it's definitely the widest of the lights in the lineup, and a nice big hotspot to go with it. This light excels at mid-range use, and is definitely going to illuminate the largest area compared to the other lights. Next up, we have the latest version of the PD35 from Fenix, which is version 3, and they've come a long way since version 1, which is the first high-end tactical flashlight that I've ever owned. The body is made from aluminum alloy, and there's some linear style knurling and a removable pocket clip. There's a side switch which you can use to turn the PD35 on and off and cycle through 6 different output modes, including a strobe, and it also doubles as a battery life indicator. There's a rubber clicky switch on the tail, and it has a crenulated bezel with short wide teeth, a D-convex lens, a smooth aluminum reflector, and a luminous SFT40 emitter. It comes with a 2600 mAh 18650 battery that has a built-in micro USB port for charging. The PD35 version 3 has a max output of 1700 lumens on turbo, a peak intensity of 31,900 candela, and a max throw distance of 357 meters. It has a very tight hotspot, and it excels at long distance use, and a wide flood, which makes it practical for illuminating the surrounding area. Its beam profile is most similar to ACEBEAM's P15, but the hotspot is a bit sharper and has virtually no spill. Here we have the ThruNite BSS V4, and if you want a really high output light with a long moonlight runtime that's affordably priced, this is a great option to consider. It has an aluminum alloy body with a similar rectangular style knurling pattern as the Warrior Mini 2, and there's a metallic side switch battery life indicator which controls these 6 different output modes. There's a micro USB input protected by a rubber charging port cover, which you can use to charge the included 3100 mAh IMR 18650 battery. The light can also tail stand, and it's got a rubber tail switch, which gives you direct access to turbo. It has a removable crenulated bezel with super long sharp teeth, a smooth reflector, and a luminous SST70 emitter, and it also comes with a red lens filter, which is useful for preserving night vision. The BSS V4 has a max output of 2,523 lumens, a max throw distance of 250 meters, and an intensity of 15,750 candela. It has a relatively wide hotspot and a wide flood, which is shaped in part by the crenulated bezel. It's another well-balanced mid-range light, and one of the brightest here, and is similar in beam profile to the Klarus light, which we'll be taking a look at soon. Next up is the Wurkkos FC12, and this is one of the most budget-friendly lights with one of the longest throw distances. The body is made from aluminum alloy. It has a knurling pattern with wide grooves on the tube and a removable two-way pocket clip. The FC12 has a backlit rubber side switch power status indicator, which you can use to switch between ramping mode or step mode with 9 different outputs. It has a USB-C input protected by a rubber cover, and it comes with a 3000 mAh button top battery. The FC12 won't tail stand, but it does have a big rubber tail switch with direct access to turbo. The FC12 has a smooth bezel, a toughened glass lens, a smooth aluminum reflector, and a luminous SFT40 emitter. The FC12 has a max output of 2000 lumens, a peak intensity of 29,833 candela, and a max throw distance of 345 meters. It has a tight hotspot and a beam angle that's definitely on the narrow side. It does excel at distance use, and if you want to be able to light up a relatively large area at distance, this is the best option in the lineup. It's most similar to the ACEBEAM P15 in throw, and is very comparable to the Sofirn SP31 V2 in price. This is the Sofirn SP31 V2, and this is the most budget-friendly light in the lineup. It's got an aluminum alloy body with a very fine diamond-shaped knurling pattern and a removable pocket clip. There's a backlit side switch which gives you access to 7 different output modes, and a rubber switch on the tail with direct access to turbo and tail standing abilities as well. It has a smooth bezel, a toughened glass lens with a purple anti-reflective coating, and an aluminum reflector with a Samsung LH351D emitter. There is no charging port on the light, but it does come with a separate battery charger to charge its included 3000 mAh button top battery. The SP31 V2 has a max output of 1200 lumens, an intensity of 12,707 candela, and a max throw distance of 225 meters. It has one of the wider hotspots and a decent amount of spill and a medium-sized beam angle, and overall it's a pretty well-balanced light for mid-range use, with a bit of spill for spotting things at longer distance. Its beam profile is most similar to the Klarus light, which we'll be taking a look at next. Here we have the Klarus XT11 GT Pro V2, and if you're looking for a really high output long distance throwing light, this is a great option to consider. It has an aluminum body with a fine rectangular style knurling pattern and a removable pocket clip. There's a USB-C input on the side protected by a rubber cover, and it can charge the included 3100 mAh IMR button top 18650 battery in about 4 hours. There's 2 different switches on the tail, including a large rubber one to turn the light on and off, and a side tail switch which helps you change between 6 different output modes. It has a relatively wide head with a crenulated bezel with medium-sized teeth and a luminous SST70 emitter. The XT11 GT Pro V2 has a max output of 3300 lumens, a peak intensity of 29,440 candela, and a max throw distance of 410 meters. If you're looking for something with a high output that excels at distance use, this is the best light in the lineup. It has a relatively large hotspot and a medium flood, and is great for illuminating large areas at distance, similar to the Wurkkos FC12, but with a much wider beam angle like the ACEBEAM P15 and the Fenix PD35. Next up we have the MH11, which is a really simple and affordable tactical light from Nitecore. The MH11 has an aluminum body with an HA3 finish and some crisscross knurling on the tube. There is a USB-C charging input protected by a rubber cover to charge the included 2600 mAh button top lithium-ion battery, and there's a power indicator as well. It can stand on its tail, and there's a rubber switch on the tail which controls 4 different output modes. The MH11 has a crenulated bezel with medium short teeth, an optical lens with a double scratch resistant coating, and a Cree XPL2 V6 emitter. The MH11 has a max output of 1000 lumens, an intensity of 9150 candela, and a max throw distance of 190 meters. It's the lowest output light in the lineup and would be best suited for short to mid-range use. It has a relatively large hotspot and some spill, and a medium-sized beam angle. Here's a side-by-side look at these lights on turbo. The trees in the center are at about 75 meters away. When it comes to wide beam angle, the Olight is the clear winner, with the ACEBEAM P15 and the Fenix PD35 coming in close behind, but those 2 lights are definitely some of the best when it comes to throw. The Klarus is a standout light with excellent visibility at long distances, and the Wurkkos and the ThruNite come in close behind. The Sofirn and the Nitecore MH11 are the least bright, but the Sofirn is able to illuminate the trees very well, but the Nitecore is definitely struggling in comparison at this distance. For the medium mode comparison, I went ahead and picked a mode with a decent balance of output at runtime that I think people would find themselves using most often. The ACEBEAM P15 has a 45 lumen output mode with a runtime of about 37 hours. In this mode, it provides enough light to comfortably walk on a trail, and the flood makes it easy to see the terrain, and the hotspot is useful for objects at longer distances. This is one of the best lights for multiple nights of use. The Olight Warrior Mini 2 has a 120 lumen mode with a nice long 19-hour runtime. Since this light has the widest beam angle and the largest flood, it's one of the best suited for walking around because it illuminates a large area, and the runtime is great on this output and would be useful for multiple nights of use. The Fenix SP31 V2 has a 50 lumen mode with a 26-hour runtime. It's similar to the ACEBEAM P15, and it has a nice hotspot for spotting and a wide flood, which makes it excellent for walking as well. The ThruNite BSS V4 has a 350 lumen mode with a 4.5-hour runtime. This is the brightest of the mid modes we're going to be looking at, and it offers a decent amount of runtime. It illuminates a nice wide area and is definitely the most comfortable option if you're going to be walking for a few hours and aren't concerned about draining the battery. The Wurkkos FC12 has a 300 lumen mode with a 7.5-hour runtime. Again, we're dealing with a narrow beam angle, so it's not the best for walking through the woods, but if you need to be able to spot things at distance, this is definitely one of the best options. The Sofirn SP31 V2 has a 50 lumen mode with a 26-hour runtime. This mode offers a nice blend of output and excellent runtime with a mid-sized beam angle, and is pretty similar to what we saw with Olight and what we will see from Nitecore. The Klarus XT11 GT Pro V2 has a 200 lumen mode with a 12-hour runtime. This light is very well suited for walking around in the dark with its mid-sized beam angle, and also good for spotting objects slightly further away, and the runtime is very good on this mode, so you can use it for multiple nights. The Nitecore MH11 has a 50 lumen mode with a 20-hour runtime. This light is definitely well suited for walking around in the dark and will do a good job of steadily maintaining this output, and this is a great mode if you're concerned about battery life preservation. Now we're going to be taking a look at each of these lights on their moonlight modes so you can get an idea of what their lowest output modes look like along with their max runtimes. The ACEBEAM P15 has a 2 lumen output mode with a max runtime of 840 hours, which is about 35 days. The Olight Warrior Mini 2 has a 1 lumen output with a runtime of 1080 hours, which is about 45 days and is very impressive. The Fenix PD35 version 3 has a 5 lumen output with a runtime of 230 hours, which is a little over 9.5 days. The ThruNite BSS V4 has a 0.54 lumen output with a max runtime of 1344 hours, which is about 56 days, and this is the longest runtime of the lights here. The Wurkkos FC12 has a 1 lumen output with a 400-hour runtime, which is a little over 16 days. The Sofirn SP31 V2 has a 5 lumen output with a 291-hour runtime, which is about 12 days. The Klarus XT11 GT Pro V2 has the brightest of the moon modes with a 10 lumen output and a 120-hour runtime, which is 5 days. The Nitecore MH11 has a 3 lumen output mode, and it's able to sustain this for about 10.5 days. Here's a quick look at how the moonlight modes compare. The ThruNite BSS V4 is definitely the winner here when it comes to battery life, and the Olight and the ACEBEAM are close behind. The Klarus and the Wurkkos definitely have the brightest modes, and it would be great to see these reduced to extend the runtime. Here's a look at the lengths of these lights and their weights in grams, including batteries. The Olight Warrior 2 is the shortest in length at around 118 millimeters or 4.65 inches, and the ThruNite BSS V4 is the longest at 146.5 millimeters or 5.77 inches, including its huge crenulated bezel. The Nitecore MH11 is the most lightweight at 107.9 grams, which is about 3.8 ounces, and the Klarus XT11 GT Pro V2 is the heaviest at 171.1 grams or 6.04 ounces. Let me know what 18650 tactical light is your favorite in the comments, and if you want to pick one up and help support the channel, you can find a link in the description below. And if you want to check out some more flashlight comparisons like this one, you can find links to those down in the description as well.